I just want to welcome everyone to Wonderland Books tonight. Thank you all for coming and being here. My name is Gail Weisswasser. I'm one of the co-owners of the store. We opened, if you haven't been here yet, we opened in December, and we're very, very happy to be here in Bethesda. My co-owner, Amy Joyce, unfortunately wasn't able to be here tonight, but she was sad to miss it. So tonight we have two of my favorite rabbis. It's very exciting to have them here in the store. First we have Rabbi Shira Stutman, who is a nationally known faith-based leader and change maker with more than 20 years experience motivating and inspiring groups large and small. She's the co-host of the top-rated PRX podcast, Chutzpod, which is an amazing name, in which she provides Jewish answers to life's contemporary questions and help listeners build lives of meaning. She's also the author of The Jewish Way to a Good Life, which is the book that we are celebrating tonight. She's the senior rabbi of the Aspen Jewish Congregation and the founder of Mixed Multitudes, a consultancy that exposes diverse groups of Jews and fellow travelers to the beauty and power of Jewish life, tradition, and conversation. She was named one of America's most inspiring rabbis by the Jewish Forward and a Trua Rabbinic Human Rights Hero, among other awards. Rabbi Shira graduated from Columbia University and the Reconstructionist Rabbinical College, where she was a Wexner Graduate Fellow. Rabbi Stutman is also one of my daughter's best friends. Well, she's my daughter's best friend's mother.
That's right.
So we go way back,
Correct.
Personally, which is lovely. And Rabbi Stutman will be in conversation tonight with Rabbi Hannah Goldstein, who has been at Temple Sinai since 2013. In addition to leading services and officiating at life cycle events, Rabbi Goldstein is deeply committed to the education and social justice work of the congregation. She loves teaching learners of all ages, from nursery school through 7th grade B'nai Mitzvah preparation to teens. She coordinates Temple Sinai's adult education program as well, which includes everything from book discussions, fitting, to weekday mini courses, adult Hebrew, and adult B'nai Mitzvah. And I just have to add that Rabbi Goldstein officiated last Saturday at my son's bar mitzvah. He's right there. And she did an absolutely wonderful job. So I'm thrilled to introduce the two of them tonight. And Hannah is going to be asking questions and kind of leading the conversation with Shira. And then afterwards, Shira will be signing books up at the front. And we have them here to purchase if you haven't gotten one yet.
Yeah, we can.
I feel like we have the best job.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
I want to talk
some
about
days.
Okay.
Like now, I feel that way right now.
I feel it right now too.
Yeah.
This is fun.
So first of all, thank you for writing this book. I think it is such an amazing resource. I wanted to start, actually, we're in a bookstore, and I wondered where it lives in a bookstore. Like, what shelf does this book live on? Because it's a Jewish book, but I don't necessarily think it's just for Jewish people. So do you know, Gail, where is this book?
Well, it's currently been like up in the front and at the counter because we had an upcoming event.
Okay.
But next week when the dust settles, it'll probably be in our religion section.
Okay.
But it is such a good question, because that's how this book came about. So I was doing this podcast, Chutzpod, and I got a call from the woman who became my editor. Her name is Batya Rosenblum, so Jew, but she works at a self-help press. And she said, like, you know, they were watching all of the Marie Kondo books and all of the Swedish art of death cleaning and this art of that, and they wanted the Jewish art of leading a meaningful life. So it's a really good, because originally this book was meant to be in self-help, because it wasn't meant to be just for Jews. In fact, it was actually meant to be for everyone. But I am, like, right now, like when I go into other bookstores, I do see it in the religion section, you know, which is fine, as long as all I want is for a store to carry the book. But it actually was a real conversation that we had about who is it for and where it should live.
Well, I will say this, that as the owner of the store, I have the license to put it in both places.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So that's an interesting origin story, actually.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it feels, in some ways, sort of knowing you and your work, it feels like this is like Shira Stutman's book. Like, you know, it feels like I can see it as a reflection of Chutzpod and Sinai and sort of this, like, this is Judaism for everyone.
Right.
And it's interesting that like that was kind of was that the impetus to write the book?
Yeah. She was hawking me to write the book for a while, and she kept calling me, and I was like, I'm too busy. And finally, she was like, Shira, everything that is going in the book is already in your head, right? She's like, there's nothing that you need to figure out. And so I was like, okay, like that was the one that got me. And so she was right? Like if you read the book, and if you've been in any class that I've taught, and there are people in this room who have been in my classes, you're like, oh, I know that story, I know that teaching. So the sort of combination of my years at Sinai and my years as sort of like a evangelical outreach rabbi, for what it's worth, combined with Sefaria, which is the best website, which is the website where you can find all of your sources, it made it actually a pretty easy book to write for me in the end.
And how do you write a book? Like,
By the way,
yeah,
because I am sure you have a book in you. You
not,
also
not
have,
right now.
No,
Yeah.
you have 3 small children right now. So first of all, my children had grown up, right? My youngest is graduating high school this year, please God. And also I was commuting to Aspen, as one does. So the flight to Aspen is kind of a pain in the tuchus. It's like you can't do it in less than a day. So I basically wrote this book on the plane going back and forth to Aspen, because like, what do you do on a plane? And so,
Just write a book.
so that's really how it happened. It was like the right time of life, and I just like put one foot in front of the other, step by step, and just got it done. At the end of the day, it's not like I signed a contract, I got an advance. This was my deadline. So, and also if I teach any of you anything tonight, it's like one of my core orienting principles is don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good enough. So this book is good enough, It's like it's fine. Like if I had longer, I would have written maybe a little. But this is my Torah.
It's so your Torah. I mean, I think I've sat on Bat Din with you, where we've welcomed people to Judaism. I think that's actually like probably my most Shira Stutman experience. And my first thought when I read this was, this is perfect for conversions. Like that's the population that feels like, I was like, great. Like we needed this book. Now this book exists. It's a great overview. It's a great introduction. Also, Judaism has like thousands and thousands of books. So even just narrowing it to 10, like how did you get to 10? I mean, I think that's kind of how did you go from like the giant to the less giant?
I feel like so my way is to give the honest answer, as
that.
opposed to like the sort of, I sat with Hashem and I prayed on it. And Batya said, here are the 10 I think you should do. We went back and forth. We did go back and forth. Like I wanted to write a chapter on money, and she was like, no, don't write about Jews and money, too scary. And I was like, no, like Jews and money is my sweet spot. Like I like talking about it, and so I put in a few, I took out a few. But yeah, that's it. We really just came to it together. And again, it's just like you could write The Jewish Way to a Meaningful Life Part 2, right? Like it's just, so this is just the beginning, and it is, I mean, you're right. Like this book, the people I had in mind were my conversion students, Intro to Judaism students, interfaith couples, and their non-Jewish family members who are learning about Judaism for the first time. Like that, because those are the people I've interacted with the most. But God willing, there will be other people for whom it'll be meaningful as well.
Yeah, it's a positive book. Like I think in general it feels like upbeat, which is nice. And in these times, it's nice to read something that feels upbeat. You write in the introduction, like I could write a whole other book about all the things that are less favorable. And I'm just like, are you going to write that book?
Nope. That's not my Torah. My Torah is the Torah of happiness and love. No, I mean, it is even the chapter on mourning, right? Yeah. It's a positive take on Judaism. And yeah, I could write a chapter on homophobia and xenophobia and misogyny. Like we have all of that in Judaism in droves. But if my life's work is to sort of bring people into Judaism, I mean, I guess I could write the book about, look, here's some terrible stuff, and here's what we've done with it, as a way of saying welcome in. I don't know. Well, come back in a few years, see if I can stomach that one.
Does Batya have 10 of those for you?
Batya has now left that publishing house and went somewhere else. So now I can't even find her anymore. So I don't know if she's going to be finding me.
That's too bad. Yeah, I need a Batya someday in like 20 years.
You do. Just wait for the kids to
That's all it takes. So you talk about writing, like the context for writing was after October 7th. So the backdrop to this book was not like a super positive time. And I'm curious about how that shows up. It's not explicit in the book, I think. Like, after reading the introduction, I was like, I wonder how this is gonna show up in the book. And it's not present in an explicit way, but I'm wondering for you as the person who kind of sat with that in your head, how does it feel like it shows up in the book for you?
So this book was like a balm for me in a really difficult time. Like getting to write about all the beautiful parts of Judaism when Judaism is being maligned and when Israel is at war and there are hostages, in tunnels, was just for me was really a meaningful practice. Like it reminded me in the moments where I'm like, why are we still doing this Jewish thing? Like, why haven't we moved on? There's been so much pain. It reminded me, like, it brought me back to, like, sort of the center, and reminded me of why Judaism actually, why all evidence to the contrary, religion actually can be a force for good. So that's part one. Part two is a little bit more complicated, which is that one of the things that I think has happened in American Judaism for some people is the entirety of our Jewish identities have become about Israel. They've become, and especially post-October 7th. And it's like we forget that Israel is only part of what it means to be a practicing Jew in this world. And of course, we can love Israel, and to say nothing of the fact that half of the world's Jews live in Israel, but Judaism is much bigger than Israel. And so for those of us who are either forgetting or getting hyper-focused on Israel because we are escalated and traumatized and because what's happening there is really terrible, I think it was my offering of just remember what else Judaism is. And of course it comes up in sort of oblique ways. Like if you read the chapter on justice, you can read it through the lens of everything happening in Israel. Although the truth is, the chapter on justice, one of the things I learned about the Hebrew word tzedek that I never really knew before, that maybe some of you know, is that at its core, the Hebrew word tzedek is about having fair court system. And at its core, Judaism believes you cannot have justice if you do not have an effective court system, which I actually think is more applicable here in our country, the United States right now, than, Israel too, but also here in the United States, so yeah.
One of the chapters, is this on? I turned it off. Hello? Okay. One of the chapters that I read and it felt like, oh my God, this is a rabbi writing, was about community. Like I just felt like I recognized some of your like core ideas of what you were trying to impart on people as what it means to be part of a community and what it means to build community. And I imagine most people here haven't yet read the book, but we hope you will read it. Like,
it's a very quick read. When I was at an event a few weeks ago, a woman looked at me, she goes, it's basically a pamphlet. Barely a book. So, I don't know. I think it's a book, but do what you know.
So you can do it, but just to tide you over until you do, could you talk a little bit about the community, like loneliness chapter, and just how, like, what animated that for you, and sort of like what are the big things that you hope people will take away from that one?
Yeah, I will, and then I would love to hear a little bit about Temple Sinai too, because this chapter on community came directly from my work at Sinai, and I don't know, do you know what Sinai is? Yeah, okay. So Sinai is, we used to call them off-the-bus birthwriters. People who had like some sort of connection to their Jewish identity, but maybe they hadn't been back in the synagogue since their bar or bat mitzvah, if they even had one. That ended up being just a small portion of who we served at Sinai. And here I'm just talking about in the religious life program, we served, people who had one Jewish parent but hadn't grown up Jewish. We served a lot of non-Jewish partners. As we talked about, we served people who were converting to Judaism. But what we found about the millennials and later about Gen Z is that it wasn't only Judaism that they needed, that we thought that they could stand to learn a little bit about as adults. It was also about how to build a community. That just was not a muscle that was strong in a lot of the people who came in our doors. Like they didn't know things like if someone is sick, you bring them chicken soup. I mean, they knew it because like their bubby did it, but they didn't know that they were now in their 20s old enough to do it themselves, right? They didn't know to show up at a shiva. They didn't know that like to be in a real community, there have to be people there that you don't even like, right? Like that's what it means to be a community. Otherwise, it's a friendship group. And this is some of what I write about in the book. And so part of what we ended up doing at Sinai, we would say this to people all the time, is like half the work was the Jewish work and the other half was the how to be in community work, which obviously is also the Jewish work, but it is also not Jewish work as well. And so I wonder if like at a place like Temple Sinai, where you have older people often in more like either, you know, units or either family units or partnered, like is that work that you have to do thoughtfully also?
Yeah, I mean, part of why I mentioned it was that I read it and I just felt like this is part of the work of a rabbi or of a clergy person in a community where people are trying to be in community but also don't always know how, and sometimes they're really frustrated that you can't just like hand them community.
Yeah.
And I think when I was interning, when I was in school, I spent a summer at Temple Israel in Boston, and I remember they gave me this committee of people to like help me learn how to be an intern. I don't know. It was nice. And this woman told me a story that I will never forget, which was about when she joined. She was part of like this small synagogue where you had to set up the chairs, and everyone set up the chairs and they brought the food. And she was like, this is really nice, but I want to go to somewhere where I don't have to set up the chairs. So she joined Temple Israel Boston, which is a huge synagogue, and someone else set up the chairs. And then for like 2 years, she never met anyone.
Correct.
She didn't know anyone in the building. And she realized like if I want community, I have to do something. It may not be setting up the chairs, but I need to like be present and join something and get. And I think it's something that I think in our, you know, Sinai is different from Sinai, our population's different, but we're a big synagogue. It's a big urban-ish synagogue where people are busy and doing a million different things, and it's easy for it to be transactional. And I think when people come to us and they say, I haven't connected anyone here, nobody knows me here, it's like, well, do you come? Do you do anything? Like, how do you engage with this community? You have to put something in. So that felt very...
I'm going to say, from now on, I'm going to say it's about setting up the chairs.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. It's about setting up the chairs. It's about sweat equity and really just, like, getting involved somehow, because that's exactly right on. Yeah.
I loved it. It was great. I was like, do this. Do what Shira tells you to do. This is it.
Well, but the hardest part, like, the number of times that a young person, because, by the way, we don't have that many people here in this evening who, I mean, maybe some of you are still in your 20s and 30s, but many of us have long passed those years, and 20s and 30s are statistically some of the loneliest years of your life, right? Right, because you work at Georgetown, you know this, and you know, because it's an incredibly lonely time, and so people come and they just want ready-made friendships like they sort of had in college, and they certainly had before then, and so I had to say to them, before you can hawk me, you have to come 6 times, right? 6 times. Imagine showing up at a synagogue 6 times. No one's going to talk to you. You have to walk up and talk to people, and it's going to be terrible. But if after that 6th time you haven't found your people, then we can talk. I wish I didn't have to say that. I still feel like evangelical churches must be nicer than synagogues. I don't know if that's true. Maybe some of, yes, you know that for a fact? I feel people nodding. I in my fantasy world, you know, it's because they want to save you, so it's like they really got to get you in quicker. I don't know, but Jews are not good. Like it's a problem.
Yeah, I think, and it's, when you talk about, you join community, you want to see the people you know, like there's a real part of that, you know, and we have to stretch, you know, and I think it requires, it's the community and it's the participant both kind of need to learn how to stretch. So, one of the threads, and this kind of connects to that, is I feel like throughout the book there's this idea you kind of get out what you put in. Like if it's good for others, it's good for you. It shows up in the tzedek, you know, chapter and the chesed chapter. It's like, oh, you're getting something in return when you do the thing that's like the good Jewish thing to do. And I'm wondering, like, how did you when did you realize that, or how did you kind of get that insight? Feels like it's a really powerful part of your message, and I'm curious, like, sort of how did you uncover that?
I just uncovered it 5 seconds ago when you said it. I never actually thought of it that way. That's true. This idea of it, like, you get out what you put in because it is a big part of Judaism, right? Like if people say to you, like, boil down Judaism to, like, you know, 2 or 3 words, I'll say it is about being of service to the other, and in doing so, building a meaningful life for yourself, right? Judaism is perfectly fine with you doing the right thing for the wrong reason, right? So if you want to bring a meal to someone because one day you want them to bring a meal to you, that's fine, because you're still bringing a meal to someone. And so there is the part where, I love that. This is great.
That's what you're
Is someone
about.
recording
Yeah.
this? Right, so this idea, right, and it does thread itself not only through acts of chesed, but also through love and your loving relationships, and through acts of justice, because building a just world is not just about the other. It'll be good for me to live in a just world as well. And I do think that that's one of the things that Judaism, in its sort of realistic approach to how to be, asks us to remember at all times. Like the sort of selflessness, turn the other cheek, that's just, for better or for worse, not us, right? We're like, do it because it'll be good for you and it'll be good for them too.
Yeah, and the prophet rabbi thing I thought was a really helpful framing for that. Like the prophet stands in the corner and yells at you, and no one's super moved by that.
Right.
The rabbi tells you, the rabbinic rabbi, not us. I don't know if anyone's gonna do what I tell them to, but the rabbinic rabbi.
The non-Jewish partners do.
Yeah.
The non-Jewish partners are the best, but not the born Jews. They will not.
Well trained,
No.
not to. But to have a framework in which to do the thing, I think is a helpful way to think about it, and that connects me. This is such a hard moment in the whole wide world, but I think particularly in DC, we feel it so profoundly and it's so personal. And I'm wondering, it is a positive book and it's pretty upbeat, and it's about a way to a meaningful life. So I'm curious, how do you take kind of the learning from the book and just apply it to the reality that I think we're in right now as a community, just of Washingtonians, DMV people?
Yeah. I think that's a really fair question. I think there are two different kinds of answers. One is you theoretically at least could read the chapter on justice and use it to figure out what your justice work is going to look like. But I think closer to the truth is, one of the feelings that I've been feeling more than any other emotion these last months is just a feeling of helplessness. I don't know what to do. I get up, I read the paper, I look at Facebook, and then I'm like, okay, now what do? Do I just repost the things that someone else posted to the same people that person's posting to, because we have 700 mutual friends? I literally, and then I feel paralyzed.
Yeah.
So one of the things I hope that this book can do is it actually gives you ways to be and to do even in paralysis, right? Doing an act of chesed will not rebuild USAID, right? But it actually can be a kindness to someone from USAID who has lost their job, right? So in each chapter, there are things that you can do actually just to transform your little corner, and maybe, God willing, to be in community with other people who can help you figure out how to do the larger work. But I too am so bereft, right? I'm just bereft, and I feel like we are in a moment of real cruelty in the United States. And one of the things that this book tries to aim for is to choose kindness when you can. And I just have to believe that enough acts of kindness will start to bend the arc, maybe not very much towards justice, but certainly not the other way, not the way that it seems to be going right now.
Yeah, and I think it's so much about relationship. I think another beautiful thread is just it's about showing up for other people and doing right by other people for whatever, no matter the motivation. And I think that feels part of what's so out of sync right now is this sense of alienation that we have from one another. And so I think there is a cocoon, a repair that exists, and just kind of thinking about how do we show up for each other.
Yeah, it's really hard. And just because we are feeling helpless and alienated doesn't mean we can't come to Temple Sinai, right? It shouldn't keep us locked up in the fetal position in our homes, even if that's what we want to do and who we want. That's what we want. But we still can go out and be with others, and that can at least help us, even if it doesn't transform the world or our country. But yeah, it's a really terrible time.
It's a terrible time.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming. Have a great night. What are you reading? What else are you reading? What's on your nightstand or on your Kindle or wherever you read, or listening to, or
Yeah, right now I am reading Memorial Days by Geraldine Brooks,
Oh,
which is a
okay.
it's a quick read. It's a beautiful read. You should all buy it here after you buy my books to support the bookstore. And it is actually a book about, I'm not giving that much away, but some of you might know her. She's like a Washingtonian. Okay, so her husband died suddenly. She is a convert to Judaism, and he was a born Jew, and they didn't really sit Shiva. So 3 years after he dies, she goes to Australia by herself to sort of sit Shiva and remember her husband. And so it's just like, it is a beautiful, beautiful book, and it's all about finding solace, and those are the books that I'm attracted to right now. I also just read People magazine all the time. If you want my honest answer, I just like, sometimes fantasy is good, and the fantasy of People magazine and New York magazine, which I think is People magazine for intellectuals. Also, it just makes me happy. I know, right? Do you want my leftover People magazines, or do you not have time to read?
I'm reading the Crazy Rich Asians trilogy.
Excellent.
So I'm finding my escapism in a slightly different flavor, but I've given up on real books, also because it's like the 2 a.m, like some child is awake, so I'm like, this is good, I can do this. It's great, we're doing great over here. So I'm gonna let you ask the questions. We're gonna turn to you guys. What's the best? Should I just? Sure. Great. Yeah, go for it.
Thank you very much to both of you for being here today. My name is Nathan, and I'm a recent graduate of Montgomery College here in the Washington D.C. area. I've always found the events at 6th and I to be truly meaningful and inspiring and wonderful, and I've worked a lot on issues specifically related to inclusion and special needs in the Jewish community for a long time, and I'm hoping ultimately to work professionally in the Jewish community. That's something I've thought a lot about, and my question is, in your book, I was very inspired by your referring to your father's favorite sermon by Rabbi Avis Miller about showing up. About the importance of showing up, and I was wondering, are there any stories from your rabbinical career that you think particularly illustrate the value of showing up?
That is such a beautiful question. Thank you, my gosh. And also, Yasher Koach, I'm graduating from college. That's awesome. Right, did anyone else grow up with Avis Miller as their rabbi? Oh, that's so nice. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, yeah, she's one of the people that I think in the book, because of this sermon that she gave that was transformative to my father, and I know to other people in this room as well. Yeah, so there are, one of the really twisted, I hope you guys are okay with a little dark humor, like we're in difficult times, but difficult jokes that we used to make at 6th and I is that we didn't do a lot of funerals there, but when we did them, they were very sad, right? Because it meant that a young person had passed away. Mm-hmm. And so one of the funerals that we did was for a young man who had just turned 40. He died of cancer. He had a wife who had converted to Judaism, was very, very connected to Judaism, but still was learning, he had a 7-month-old son. And he passed away from cancer, and he was the only child of his parents who were still alive. Like, it was like, right, you all are, you understand the story. And the community came together in ways that still to this day give me, right, your kids were involved, to give me just goosebumps. So they showed up throughout the time that he was sick. They would come over and they would walk his dog, right, and they would take care of the infant. By the way, remember, these are all people in their 20s and 30s, none of whom have any idea how to take care of an infant. So, they're like, I don't know if I hang them upside, if I put the diaper on this way. It was just sort of like one of these, like, 3 men and a baby kind of things, but it was so beautiful. And then when he died, they all sat with his body, right? And these were all people who 5 years before didn't know any Jewish traditions, like not all of them, but most of them didn't know most Jewish. And then when we went to bury him, they stayed until the grave was entirely full, 45 minutes later. And then they stuck with this family afterwards. And I just got a text from the widow. Her son is now 9 years old. Does that feel right, about 9 years? Does that feel right? About 9 years old, and she sent me a text of him reading Torah for the first time. He goes to JDS, and she is now still part of this community, and they are still all showing up together, and there have been divorces, and there have been people who have moved across the country, but they still show up for each other, and now this young man is being trained to show up for other people as well. So that's what community can do at its best. I can't wait to see where you work in the Jewish community. I look forward to coming back to town and seeing you at some synagogue locally.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Hi, question for both of you. What's your favorite thing to teach? You go to a new congregation, you're a scholar in residence for the weekend. They say, teach whatever you want. What do you choose?
I know. I can't believe you've been there for 12 years already.
I know.
That's a long time. That's amazing.
I know,
How
I was
lucky
like,
they
I
are.
haven't been to a new congregation in a long time.
All right, wait. Is it going to get me in a lot of trouble? Or, like, do I want to get invited back to the congregation or not invited back? I really like to talk about Jews and money, because I think that Judaism has a lot of really important and beautiful teachings about money, about how we use it and how we save it and how we give it. And because of anti-Semitism, we've sort of put that away. So that's my absolute favorite thing to teach. I also like to teach about building authentically welcoming communities. And the truth is, as hard as it is, I love to teach about Israel-Palestine. Like, I just think it's like really important for us to figure out how to be in conversation about Israel, and stay as one people, because I get worried about that sometimes. That's the thing that would get me not invited back. But the other stuff would be just fine.
I think so. I actually thought about the title and the Way of Man, like the Buber, the Way of Man according to Hasidic teaching. It's like this series of short Hasidic tales, sort of told with like this instruction manual, like how to understand the stories and how they can inform the way we move through the world. It's a beautiful little book. Rabbi Bernard Millman actually he recently retranslated it. He actually was like the founding rabbi of Temple Micah. He's like an old school DC rabbi, then moved to Boston. But it's a beautiful book, and I think the things that I love about your book is it's useful. And I think one of the things about Judaism is like, we're not so good. We're kind of like, Judaism's good. Like, just take our word for it. Just do the thing. Go to your Passover Seder. Like, that's because we've always been doing it, and we're
You're not going to understand any of what you say.
Right, like, just
yeah.
go. Like,
Yeah.
eat the matzah balls. But I think this question of, like, in a world where religion is an option, I think we have to think about, like, how can this help me? Like, how does it make my life better? And I think that we have these beautiful texts that can actually help us live more meaningful lives, and like Musar, the practice of Musar, there's things that we can draw on, and I think leaning on those and helping people to see them is just, it's a gift that I think for people who've been practicing Judaism for a lifetime, but not necessarily thinking about like, how does this make my life better? It's a real helpful articulation of that.
Right. Because humans are meaning-seeking creatures, right? We are still looking for meaning, and so either we'll find it, on the top of a mountain, or we'll find it at like Soul Cycle, right? We will look for it, and so why not find it in your actual religion? Like, it is there as well.
Yeah.
Speaking of Israelis and Palestinians, the conversations about the Middle East are the most destructive, I think, around a dinner table, around a community. I once came out of a congregation when I lived in New York City, and I just felt so good. I'm going to really be a force for the world. And I waited at a bus station. I passed someone I knew slightly, and within, I'd say, 3 minutes, we were like yelling at each other about it. I mean, it was just so, I barely knew the man. And he was just, what kind of guardrails can you set up so that at least how can we improve situations if we can't talk about it? And for Jews, and we can't talk, what is wrong?
Amen. Do you want to answer this one?
Let's talk about it.
So in 2015, when American politics started to go off the rails in a different way. You know, I thought I was such a genius, and I was like, if you can't talk to your family members around the dinner table, then there's a problem. So if you have difference, one of you is voting for one person, you have to talk to your family members. That was the worst idea I've ever had as a rabbi, right? And so now I would say, like, if you have difference with your own family members who you love, I wouldn't start with them. Like, start with other people because you want to stay in relationship with your family. The problem about conversations about the Israelis and the Palestinians, of course, is that they almost always don't come from a rational place, right? They come from this primal state of fear that so many Jews are living. I'm just talking about conversations between Jews. This is not even like in the outside. This is like a within the Jewish community kind of conversation. And so often, no matter what you feel, you're coming from the same place. You're coming from a place of existential fear that you are going to be exterminated, right? And that's why you so quickly become escalated, because you're already escalated. So you're not starting from a calm place. You know, I've taught a bunch of classes over the years on how to be in conversation around this issue. And what I can say is, it is the hardest work you'll ever do. And I would start with the people who are very, very committed to the work and start in contrived space, right? Like, I wouldn't try to have too many conversations at the bus stop. I know you didn't have it on purpose. Like, it's just like, God, I've had a trillion of those. But I would start with created spaces where you have a group of people who are committed to a certain kind of conversation, and then you can grow it from there. But this is really, really hard, and especially right now with the war still going on, it's even harder. And of course, with the next generation being differently connected to Israel than my generation, for instance, makes it even more complicated. And so I feel like that was a non-answer, but I would say it's not impossible. It's just you have to be really, really thoughtful about it. When we had a class, I'm looking at you, Billy. We had a class at Addis, Israel, that I ran a few times, and we used case studies where people would write case studies about something that was live for them in terms of Israel. And we had this one moment. Everything's confidential, so I won't give too many details. But one person from what I would call the boomer generation was no longer talking to their child about Israel, because the child was on the left and anti-Zionist, and the parent was on the right. But in the same cohort, we had a child who was very left, who was no longer talking to their parent, who was very right. So these two people could actually be in conversation with each other. One was the child on the right, the parent on the right, the child on the left, right? But they weren't actually parent and child, so they didn't have that extra layer of problematics there. And those were actually some really beautiful conversations that they were able to have. Yeah, you. Sorry.
No, Shira, I do the calling.
Yeah. So I think one of the beautiful things about Sinai was that many of us started going in our 20s and we were single, and then by the time that we sort of aged out, we were parents and married. And sitting here, our children, what do you hope that people take away and share with their children, with the next generation, like the one thing from maybe what we learned at Sinai or from your book? Like, what is your, other than Shabbat, which we know you feel strongly about, and keeping Shabbat and the importance of a Jewish life that way.
Yeah.
I did watch the other talk. So, but what do you think is like the one message you hope passes on?
I guess the one message is that Judaism is actually meaningful to their lives, right? It's not something that you do just because your parents and some of your grandparents did it, right? It's something you do because it actually has the power to make change. And that's why I keep kosher like anyone else. Like no one else actually in America, but I keep kosher like a lot of the route. I do all the things, but to me, the Jewish practices that actually sort of have meaning, kashrut has meaning, don't record me on that, but have meaning to universally, right? The idea of Shabbat, the idea of tzedakah, that's what I want you to teach your kids about. That Judaism, they should be so proud to be Jewish because they do Jewish, because it actually will make the world a better place.
Can I add one to you?
Oh my God. Well, are you going to quote Buber again? Because I felt really like
you were in your book.
Okay.
I was just throwing back some Buber. So I saw Kwan Benowitz after the Sinai talk, and she told me I was like, how is it taught? Like, I don't know, she mentioned, I don't know. And she said, Isaac asked a question. Her son Isaac asked a question. And I just thought it was so cool. It's like, your question made me think of this. So Isaac gets up, his grandfather just died. And he says, I mean, you were there, I wasn't there, it's a secondhand from like Juan at the, Oneg. But he asked, like, where's his grandfather? And it was such a beautiful story of like, the seed was planted like in the first generation, and now you have Isaac who goes to Temple Sinai, like religious school, but we haven't gotten to where do people go when they die, so he needed to talk to Shira, and like, he's like, sorry David Brooks, I got this, let me ask the question. And like, but it was like a beautiful moment of like helping him in his like child's encounter with death, like what is the Jewish way to be in this moment? And it was like, I don't know, I just thought it was like such a beautiful thing. So I'm telling your story.
Yeah, no, that is, it's like an 8-year-old kid got up and he's like, where is my grandfather? My dad says he's in Paramus. So I had simultaneously, the father was heckling me, right? He's standing behind his son, and the son was there asking about his grandmother who had just passed away. And so I had to like be both funny and serious at the same time. I thought that one came out okay. I was schwitzing a little bit, but yeah. I mean, I think that I want to say a few things. Like when I'm listening to you tell this story, I'm just thinking of how lucky I was to get to work at a place like Sixth and I, because of the non-Jewish partners and the converts to Judaism. No offense to all of you who are born Jewish in this room, which I assume is a lot of you, but it lived, vibrant, 24, I don't know if it's true in Temple Sinai as well, but vibrant comes so much from people who are looking at Judaism as an actual religion, as something you actually do, not just something that you are, right? If Judaism is something you are, then I don't know, you can eat a bacon on Yom Kippur, and call it Shabbos, because it doesn't matter, but if you have to like do the stuff, that's what makes Judaism vibrant. Yeah.
And I think we benefit from the seeds that you planted, like at Temple, I was thinking about I'm like, you should join Temple Sinai, but I don't know where you're
with
Temple.
a different time.
But that's fine. That's right. I don't care.
But we're engaged in community.
I love that for
and
you.
actually, going to preschool and being part of a synagogue nursery school really is like setting up the chairs, is what I was thinking about. And my husband always says it's like Beauty and the Beast, with Belle with the town, hello, every morning at drop off and pick up. So that's my advice.
I like love that reference. It's so real for me. Like we're in such a Disney time, and I can just little town. I got it. I'm right with you. And right, I don't care where you join. I think like one of the most amazing. I love Temple Sinai, but I think one of the richest resources we have in DC is Sixth and I, because it gets people started in a beautiful, loving way where people are psyched about their Judaism, and like when they age out of that community, like they're like, when we get them, it's such a win for us, because it's people who are like really amped and want to do Jewish and have been like trained in thinking about it in like thoughtful and meaningful ways.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, it's real. It's so real. Yeah.
I'm proud of that. I'm proud of Sixth and I. Yeah. Anyway.
Cool. Yes, last question, and then we're gonna sign. Well, I'm not gonna sign books. You're gonna
As a
sign
recent
books.
Sixth and I grad, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about one of the other things I think really plays into the community aspect is sort of the backdrop of COVID and the last several years, and sort of how we build communities. Wondering how that played into the way you approach that in the book.
Yeah, you're also tapping into something that's difficult for me, which is that I left Sixth and I in the middle of COVID. And I feel like when I quit my job in October 2020, I was like, there is no way that we will still be doing COVID by July of 2021. Mm-hmm. It turns out we were still doing COVID then. But I do think that one of the things that was able to happen during COVID is two things. One is that people were already connected to each other, and so they knew each other, and so we were, when we would get on a Zoom for, especially like the services were usually bigger, but the smaller Zooms for like morning services, people actually knew each other and cared for each other. And that was also a moment of showing up, by the way, when we had one woman who, thank God, ultimately recovered, but was very, very close to death, and the community came together and they bought her an iPad so that she could, talk to her mother who couldn't be in the room with her. So that was one benefit, having the community. But the second benefit, and this is really interesting, most synagogues have a lot of synagogues will have their 20s and 30s group, and it's wonderful. But because Sinai was almost entirely 20s and 30s, these are people who were often in the same stage of life. So what they needed from each other during COVID might look different than if you were a family with 2 small children who were home from preschool, right? They also were, in general, more of them felt more comfortable going out, buying food for one person and leaving it at another person's door. There was just more, there were different things that they needed. People who went home for 2 weeks to New York and then decided never to come back, they needed someone to empty their apartment. Like, there are things that were specific to, like, if you were, a person who's a 30-year-old living, in Noma, that aren't the same as if you were a family of 4 in Bethesda. Sorry, they're generalizations, and so that was another way that the community really worked, and specifically a community where people were very, very much within the same age range, which is different than the intergenerationality of a lot of synagogues.
Great.
All right.
Yeah.
Hannah,
We'll wrap it up with COVID.
I look forward to seeing when you write your first book.
Yeah.
Can I interview you?
Oh, deal. It's a deal.
Amazing.
I mean, you may never have to do that.
I don't believe it.
You heard it. You were the witnesses. This was so fun. Thank you so much. And
Yeah.
this book is an amazing resource, and I am so
Thank you.
grateful to you for being the one who wrote it.
Thank you, and thank you so much to Wonderland Books. This is like my new favorite DC bookstore. I just love it here so much. It's really a gift to the community. So thank you.